Hi, I'm Dr. Aimie, and today I wanted to talk about one of the common features of the effects of trauma, especially attachment trauma. And we know how the trauma dysregulates the nervous system, and the gut is completely innervated by the nervous system. And so many times that's where we see the effects of trauma showing up. And one of the most common ways to regulate a dysregulated nervous system after trauma, especially attachment trauma, is through regulating our food. And there are many times where you will see some form of eating patterns, food being used as a means to help regulate or calm down a nervous system. And many times this is done unconsciously because our systems can pick up what works, and it naturally will go back to things that helped it. And whether that's food, whether that's exercise, whether that's drugs, whether that's socializing with others, whether that's rubbing our feet, whether that's taking a bath, whatever helps our nervous system feel better, it will naturally go back to doing those things, whether we consciously realize it or not. And so many people, after having histories of trauma, will use some form of eating patterns to help regulate their nervous system. And this can look like binge eating patterns when a situation happens that kind of triggers the nervous system into some type of dysregulation, usually some form of anxiety, depression, loneliness. Then that will create this inner urge. It's more than an urge, it's more than a craving. It's this overpowering need for food now. And they will eat and eat and eat, and they eat until they get the effect that they're looking for, which is a calming down of their nervous system. And usually what happens in the binge eating patterns is that it'll create this sense of fullness, but in a way that shuts down all other stimulation of the nervous system. And so it's a form of numbing the nervous system, which in the moment for them can be really helpful. And so they go back to this pattern where and again, that's kind of why it's binge eating pattern, because they only use it when they need to. Other eating disorders that are related to a dysregulated nervous system after trauma is anorexia. And I have never seen anybody with any form of eating disorder, whether anorexia or binge eating pattern, or bulimia, that does not have a dysregulated nervous system from a history of trauma and attachment trauma. Not to say that there isn't somebody out there who has this eating pattern and does not have that history as part of their life story. I just have never seen someone with any form of eating disorder without also a history of attachment trauma. And again, part of this is just understanding so that there's less shame associated with it. And when we understand it, whether we're working with ourselves and healing ourselves from trauma, or working with a child and we see these eating patterns in them, it's a way of being able to understand them and help them understand themselves without when they don't understand themselves. They don't understand why they do what they do when it comes to food and eating. They just know that they have these uncontrollable, unmanageable urges to either not eat or to overeat and induce throwing up, whatever it is. But all of that stuff directly acts on the vagus nerve, which is our main nerve involved in the freeze survival response. And so it makes sense and helping them make sense of it, or helping ourselves make sense of it, just helps us take the shame out of it and then moves us to a place where we can start healing, because now when those urges come up, we can start to try different things to help our nervous system, since we know that it really is just an attempt to calm down our nervous system. There was a period of time in my life where I found myself what I guess I would call binge eating as well. And I was so bothered by this, so upset, disturbed. I thought I was a horrible person. And so I even went to Overeaters Anonymous and tried to understand, tried to control it that way. And it was, at least for me at that time, not something that even in Overeaters Anonymous that I could control, at least at the degree to which I could participate in the program at that time. I have found other 12-step meetings extremely helpful for me in my recovery. So it wasn't until I was able to really look at my biology and understand my nervous system that I was able to meet my needs for my nervous system in other ways. And some of that was correcting my biology. And there were some nutritional deficiencies that I had, especially fatty acids, that were creating this overwhelming urge to eat certain foods, I'm assuming in order to get those nutrients. But on top of that, even with meeting those nutritional needs, there have been times in my life since then when I am triggered by a situation that puts my nervous system in a dysregulated state. And it doesn't even have to be a negative dysregulated state. Even a positive dysregulated state at this point in my healing can still sometimes make me feel out of control and feel like I need to tone it down, like I need to numb some of that nervous system stimulation to get back to a place of calm. Now at this point I understand, and I've experimented with it enough that I know that going to food to regulate my vagus nerve and calm that down is not actually going to give me the effect that I'm looking for. Because in the past, I've realized that it numbs everything. It numbs even the good feelings. It numbs my ability to connect with others. So yes, in the moment, it's true. It does kind of bombard the vagus nerve with this over stimulation from my gut and my stomach, from the binge eating that blocks out all other stimulation. And so in that sense, it does calm it down, but I'm no longer looking for that, because I realized that the side effects of that are that it numbs everything. It numbs all other experiences, feelings, connections as well. And so at this point, I have enough other tools, I have enough other knowledge that I can go to other things in order to calm down my vagus nerve. But without the knowledge of that it was my nervous system dysregulated, that it was just my vagus nerve, I was stuck in that shame response and feeling like I had to keep it secret from people, and felt even my own inadequacy, and felt like I was just inherently bad, until I was able to understand that it was a nervous system problem, understand that it was a trauma response, and be able to then move to a place of knowledge and tools to be able to get what I need, because I do need to calm my nervous system down when it is dysregulated. But now I have other knowledge and tools that I was able to go to, because I was able to break through the shame with understanding what was really going on, and that it wasn't just because I was a bad person with a binge eating pattern. So if you are struggling with food eating patterns, or if you know of somebody who is, sometimes just this knowledge can break through that shame as well and start the process towards healing and connection with others and finding ways to regulate through other means that will actually be more effective, because it won't numb everything out. It will be able to let you choose. It will give you the power of choice in choosing which tool to use when you notice that your nervous system is dysregulated. So I hope this has been helpful, and I appreciate any comments that you want to share and would love to hear your experience.